Hello everyone, let's do this particular question called Turing, right? So what is Turing? So let's talk about the company information first of all. So background is given to us. What is it? So Turing is a joint venture. Right, so it's a joint venture with Raymond Generators in order to design and manufacture high performance wind turbines which generate electricity. So it's designing and manufacturing, right, of wind turbines which generate electricity. So the joint project is called TENDAR, right? So I don't know how I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, but yeah. So both of them own how much? 50%, right? And Turing will design and build the pylons, housing and turbine blades, while Raymond will supply the generators to be fitted inside the housing, right? So pylons, housing and turbines will be created by or will be designed and built by Turing, and the rest or the generators will be supplied to us by Raymond, right? And Turing, let's read the thing as well. We've read the company description. So background, let's just read the requirement as well. So requirement 1 is we need to assess the risk appetite of the two firms I mentioned before, Turing and Raymond or something like that, right? So something R, right? And we need to assess the risk appetite. That's the first requirement. And then we need to provide a justified recommendation for each of the appropriate method of decision making under uncertainty to assess different types of wind turbines for each firm. Okay, so that's the second one. We need to provide recommendation for each of the firms. Okay, under how much? Under assess under different types of wind turbines, right? So under that, okay, we'll come to it as well. And then evaluate. Second is what? The verb is evaluate. Evaluate what? Choice of turbine design types using your recommended methods from part A above. Okay, so it's based on that we need to give, right? And then discuss the problems encountered in managing joint ventures. Okay, so in this kind of JV, what will happen, right? So we might talk about a different risk perspective. First point that I have already come across is risk perspective of both will basically have a different objective or not. We have to look at that as well. Right, so let's look at the company information as well. From there as well, we can start to figure out the issues with JV, right? Joint ventures. So Turing is a what? Medium-sized firm. Medium-sized, right? So it's known for its design, right? So design skills, let's say. Design skills. So it's owned by 3 VCs, each holding 30%, with remaining 10% given to management to motivate them. Okay, so each 30% have their own VC have their own holding, and then 10% is by that. So VC have a large portfolio of business and accept some of these investment may fail provided that some of their returns show large gains. So management is an ambitious group, right? So they enjoy the business and technical challenges of producing new products. Okay, so they are ambitious as well. Ambitious, risk seeker, let's just say that, risk seeker, right? VC is also acceptable, right? So they can take risks. Okay, Raymond on the other hand is large. It's not medium size, right? So it's medium size and large. So we could talk about decision making capability, decision, right? Since it's large, a decision at Raymond itself is very hard, let's say it takes a lot of time. Okay, and it's family owned, right? So they have a profit conscious, risk averse kind of attitude, I guess. Let's see what happens. What the question, what the scenarios is. So working in highly competitive electricity generator sector, it's very highly competitive for them, right? So the shareholders of Raymond see the business as a mature and wants it to offer long-term return on capital. So they want a long-term return. However, recently what has happened, it had to seek emergency refinancing of its debt and equity due to thin profit margin. So pricing could be one issue with these people, with Raymond. Okay, so since they have had this kind of failure, they might want to increase their profit margin, right? So profitability for them is important as well. And as a result, shareholders are concerned for the survival of the business and see tender as a way to generate additional cash flows. So they are looking at it as an additional cash flow, so they might tend to be short-sighted or want to develop it as a thing, as a new cash flow, right? Unlike Turing, the management does not own significant shareholding, which may be preferred to fixed salaries. Okay, so management is fixed salaries, so they are likely not so risk seeker, right, in that regard. So what about the new turbine design? Right, so Tenda is a group, is run by, who is it run by? It's run by group of managers, so different managers from different group of managers from two different type of background is coming over here. So and there will be some kind of ideological differences, right? Differences as they are being paid fixed salaries, but in this scenario, what is happening? What's the JB paying them, right? That's also important thing that we need to think about. So they are currently faced with decision about designing a product. So there are three different choices. So design type is what? 8 megawatt, 3 megawatt, 1 megawatt, and description is large 8 megawatt unit, then there is 3 megawatt unit, and then there is basic 1 megawatt unit, right? So the engineering for the 1 megawatt and 3 megawatt is well understood, and so the design is simpler than for 8 megawatt, which would be world leading if completed, world leading, right? So there is opportunities and there is threats for the JB, right? For the JB, that's an important point that we can mention below. The demand for different types of units will depend on government subsidies. So demand will depend on government subsidies, right? So of the electricity price charged by the electricity generating companies who will buy the wind turbines. Okay, so basically what happens is, pardon the noise, so what happens is, these guys are the manufacturer, right? And what will happen, these guys will sell to this electricity distributing company or electricity generating company, right? So they will sell it to them, and these guys will receive from what? Government. Okay, so how much government subsidies are being allocated? Based on that, the demand will be. Alright, so how much government subsidies are there? How much are they charging? Based on that, people will demand more electricity from them, hence the turbine will be basically demanded, right, by the company. and the planning regulation for building such large structures. Will depend on government subsidies and then the planning regulation. Right, so there is two different things over here. Is government subsidies, and then number one is that, number two is the planning regulation. So of course they won't let you have all these large structures nearby residential building or residential area or something like that, right? So it has to be planned accordingly, so that will depend on the local government's planning as well. So it has been believed that the order for 1500 or 2000 will be there, right? But there is no picture yet which demand level is more likely than the others. Okay, so the estimated cost and prices for the units are given below, right? So we've been given the variable cost and fixed cost is there, price per unit is there. So for 1000 units the price is that much, right? So we have to compute for this different demand levels. The fixed cost cover the initial design, development and testing of the equipment of the unit. Okay, and cost and prices are in real terms, with the 8 megawatt unit likely to take 2 more years to develop than the others. Okay, this is more likely to take 2 more years. There will be some risks associated with that. So the further the timeline, the higher the risk. Right. So in order to answer this particular question, we need to, let's see the model answer. All right. So the question shows examiner desire to focus on more complex business structure, right? So it's about business structure. So part A, we are required to discuss the risk appetite of both the JVs, right, of the joint venture partners, and was required together with the recommendation of an appropriate method for decision making. This area has been examined many times and most of us should feel comfortable with it. Part B requires calculation of maximax and minimum payoff, right? Maximum and minimum payoff. So part B, evaluate the choices of design types using a recommended methods from above. Okay, that's for calculation. And in part C, we are required to mention how managing performance. All right. So we have to make some general book knowledge will also score well, but relate back the scenario to thing. All right. So for Turing, so since one of our stakeholder is Turing, right, in the JV, so for Turing, what is it? So they are a bit of a risk seeker, right? So the risk appetite is basically dominated by who? So basically VC have 90%, so they are risk seeking as they hold portfolio of high risk investments where they accept failures as well. The other stakeholder mentioned management have an equity stake in the business, so are more likely to be comfortable with the high risk approach, right? So that's the risk appetite. You see, they have even further broken down the question. So risk appetite and then method of decision making, appropriate method of decision making, right? So overall, therefore, Turing will likely be risk seeking, right? So they want a maximax approach. Under uncertainty will be appropriate. In maximax approach, the design selected will be the one which maximizes the highest profit of each design among the 3 different demand scenarios, right? So which maximizes the highest profit among the 3 different demand scenarios. Okay, for Raymond on the other hand, what happens is basically the risk appetite is dominated by financial investors or family investors. Both the okay, no, it's not family, but it's that the debt providers. And because you see, it was the debt providers who had refinanced, right? So it's them who have a say, right? So they had recently provided new funds to keep them afloat, right? So these investors are concerned with immediate survival of the business, so which could, as the management will lose their job, right? So the short-term need for cash flow is there is a short-term need for cash flow, right? Remember the point that I've identified that will earn us a mark, right? And then the method of decision making is going to be risk averse, right? So they will be selecting an approach called maximin. Okay, so to decision making under uncertainty will be appropriate. In maximum approach, what will happen? They will be selecting design which maximizes the lowest profit of each design among the three different demand scenarios. Okay, so some credit will be given for max regret, minimax regret solution, as it is risk averse, although it's not clearly focused on obtaining a minimum level of return needed to aid the survival of business, right? And what else? We need to also make comments or recommendations to assess different types, right? So I recommend each type of appropriate method of decision making under uncertainty to assess different types of wind turbines, right? So the management at Turing may be motivated to choose projects such as with innovative edge such as 8 megawatt, the high fixed cost, right, and unlikely to deter this Turing management, as it will potentially lead to world leading, right? So there could be a reputational gain as well, as they represent large investment in their education in potentially world leading technology, right? Right, so the fixed cost is basically because of that it takes 2 years to develop than the others, so there is a lot of learning happening over there. So wide demand for 1000 to wide range of demand forecast will make Raymond nervous, right? So the demand forecast is very variable, so the likely long time scale for the development of 8 megawatt, where 7.5 billion, right, will be invested, may not be attractive in meeting their short-term cash needs. Okay, pretty sure they have allocated what 2 marks for it. So it's not mentioned exactly, but yeah, it will be granted marks. Okay, probably 2 marks, I guess. For number B, we need to evaluate the choices of turbine design using the appropriate or recommended method, right? So we have to focus on the each different demands. Okay, so at this demand our revenue will be how much? Revenue will be 2800. Okay, so that is what 1000 times your revenue. Okay, so that's the revenue under demand 1000, right? And within that we are doing what? Revenue 8 megawatt, 3 megawatt, this megawatt, right? So all these things are revenue. For 1500 demand level, it's going to be all this revenue, right? So 1500 times to 20.8, 1500 times 20.8, and then 1500 times 20.8, no, it's 2000. Okay, so that's for 2000 levels, this one. So we've got all the revenue over here. All right, so after that all we need to do is, let me just change the eraser. Okay, so it's easier for me. So that is there, and then after that we need to calculate the variable cost. Variable cost is also same thing, 1000 times what's the variable cost, 4.8 and 10.4 for that. So 1000 times 10.4, 10,400, and 1000 times 4.8 is 4,800. 1000 times 1.15 is that much. So similar for 1500 times 10.4, it's going to give us all these different rates, right? So this total cost has been computed based on 1000, 10,400 plus the fixed cost that does not change with demand, right? So it's going to be 900, 17,900. So similarly for the other one, 4,800 plus what's it going to be, 820, right? So 5,620. So total cost has been computed. Revenue minus our total cost will give us our this figure. Okay, our profit. Okay, so that should give us our profit. So 20,800 minus 17,900, right? 0, and then that will be what, 18 and then 9. So how much will that be, 900, right? And then 19 will be 2,900. So that's our profit for each different megawatt under the demand of 1000. Okay, so how do we calculate? So always look at the each individual demand level. At what level? So at the highest demand level, at the demand level of highest. So if we are using maximax, we go with, we assume that it's going to be maximum. Okay, what, 2000, and among that as well, what's it going to be? So 13,300 will be our maximum payoff in that, right? So with maximin, so that we will go with the worst among the we choose the best among the worst. Okay, so what's the worst case scenario is 1000, and what will be our profit under that? It will be all these things, and what's the best among it is 3980. Okay, so that will be our choice, right, for the other stakeholder. What was his name, Raymond or something, right? So that's how we can do it. Okay, so you can look at the maximum payoff as well over here. So it's basically in this scenario, it's going to be maximum payoff is going to be 13,300, and then in this 3 megawatt it's this much, and then for lowest we can look at that as well. And then among this maximum payoff, what will happen? We select the maximum. Okay, 13,300, and among the lowest, what do? We select the highest, 3980. Right, so that's how we can look at it. Okay, so and then the risk-seeking decision makers, that is Turing, will select 8 megawatt with a possibility of earning how much? 13.3 billion. And then risk-averse decision makers at Raymond will select what? 3 megawatt at likelihood of earning at least 3.98 billion, right? So there will be conflict in that. And now we come to the problems associated with it. What was the thing? Conclusion is 1 marks, huh? So maximax result is 1 marks. So maximin result is 1 marks. Profit is 1 marks. Revenue is 2 marks. Variable cost is 2 marks. Total cost is 1 marks. Okay. And what do we do over here? So problems encountered in managing performance in a JV, right? Such as Tinder, TANT-R. This might sound like Tinder, but it's not. Okay. So consider the first of the measuring performance, right? So we need to. So managing performance is there, but there is some measuring performance as well. So first problem is measuring performance in JV, right? So the primary difficulty is establishing the objective of JV. The different partners have different goals. They want immediate cash flow, whereas Turing want a large returns, right? So possibly over a longer period of time. So performance metrics will likely need to include a variety of financial indicators such as profit, right? So it should include a profitability goal for Raymond, and there should be growth, right? And there should be cash flows in the metrics, financial indicators, because they want short-term cash requirement, right? So they have a liquidity problem. So however, there may be different emphasis put on this metrics by JV partner. So these will be difficulties. There will be difficulties in attributing accountability for this different element of performance, where each partner in the JV is bringing different skills and knowledge to the venture, right? So there will be different difficulties in attributing responsibility or accountability. Okay, so the different time scales, basically Raymond short term, Turing long term, will emphasize, will lead to conflict. Okay, as I mentioned, in the choice of metrics. So quarterly cash flows for Raymond to report to the shareholders, and discounted cash flows over the project life for Turing, right? So they might want quarterly cash flows for Raymond, whereas discounted cash flows for Turing at tender, right? So the different risk appetite of each stakeholder will lead to conflict in choice of key performance measures, and their problem will be difficult to resolve as the stock split is 50-50. Okay, so the possibility of deadlock can be avoided by having clearly laid out plan for resolution if it were to occur. Okay, there could be that thing. And then this high level conflict may also appear in day-to-day coordinating and controlling the JV. How does it happen? So the management of JV must be given clear direction at the outset, otherwise the deadlock problem will appear whenever there is a disagreement between managers selected by JV partners. Therefore, compatibility of the management styles and cultures of JV will have an important impact on the success. It will trickle down to the day-to-day or operations as well. Another potential issue is that in JV, I wanted to talk about this as well. So with the sharing of resources, okay, so sharing offices, assets, staffs, the partner must also share information, intellectual property. So they are bringing significant advantage. So a JV with the blade design, right? So Turing is bringing blade design. However, it's often difficult to measure the contribution of such intangible assets to the performance of the JV, and a suitable method of extracting these assets at the end of the JV will need to be agreed at its outset, right? It will need to be looked at. Okay, and it is likely that the joint venture will be reluctant to share too much information, right? So they might be reluctant to share too much information, which will create what? Climate of trust. So there will be some kind of trust issues. Okay, so it's important for the success of the JV to have a climate of trust, and which will again depend on the management style and culture, right? So they talked about management style and culture. One mark per point, different goals, different performance metrics, and handling different risk appetites. Okay, many people can get through that, and there might be deadlock. Many people can talk about that as well. But handling time horizon, some people might miss it out. Some people might miss out the different management style and cultures. Some people might miss out the intellectual property and information sharing, right? But nevertheless, 3-4 marks can be scored, right? So minimum passing marks can be scored easily. Okay. Yep. So that's pretty much it for this question. We are done with risks and uncertainty because the next question is not really very relevant to our scenario. It's about NPV and all. So it's a very old question. So that's pretty much it for risks and uncertainty. Take care. Bye bye.